Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell, and today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is trying to manage the unfairness of the dating universe. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Exactly. We are not professionals. We are not trained in this. We are just here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs in the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love.
So we are going to get started with a check-in topic. And this check-in topic is inspired by somebody who wrote a letter to us, Anxious Queen, whose pronouns are she, her, and who's writing from the void. And basically, Anxious Queen is asking about how do you unfriend your ex's family? So
from social media.
Yeah, from social media, right? And so the experience is that she is still friends with all of her ex's family. And sometimes his mom comments on her posts, but she's also really tired of seeing pictures of her ex and her ex's new girlfriend. And is how do I actually go about unfriending these folks or blocking them? Or what do I do? Do I call them first? Do I let them know it's happening? Because they're going to notice because they're still commenting on my posts and stuff. So we thought it would be a fun thing to talk about.
Fun. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. What do you do with your ex's family on social media? And how cutthroat should you be versus how open and please like everything that I ever post. I love you, because it can be challenging.
So to me, it's dependent on the level of intimacy you have with this person. What the relationship was / is now with the family member. But from my perspective and in my experience, I've always done the quiet unfriend and or block.
Sure. Yep.
The truth is you have residual relationships with family members, friends in your ex's community during your relationship, but you're in partnership with them. You are, when you're breaking up, I know that there are often these leftover relationships, this leftover love, but I think it's very understandable that things change after a breakup. I think if someone were to unfollow me or unfriend me after they broke up with my sister, I don't know, I think I would understand that. There might be some disappointment, there might be some weird feelings, but that kind of comes with the territory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just speaks to this idea that we all have that breakups are somehow very clean. We're dating and then suddenly we're broken up. But the fact is that there's just a whole bunch of momentum that continues as you're okay, you're no longer in my life. So it is, there are people that still show up in some of my social feeds from exes that I had 10 years ago.
Yes,
and it's still
totally.
Why am I following this person? I don't understand why I didn't somehow go through this. But I think that there's no perfect time to do it. It's just sort of when you're ready to say goodbye to that relationship. And it sounds like Anxious Queen is ready for that, but it doesn't need to be a all or nothing rule, right? It can be I'm going to unfriend his mom because that's a lot of pictures of him in her feed, but I'm going to stay with his sister because she posts funny things about cats or whatever, right? It can be sort of you decide, you curate. But I think Sierra's right that I don't know that you need to tell these people that you're doing it. And I also am curious if you could maybe just mute these people as well. If this relationship is still important to you so that you're not seeing all of their pictures, but they can still see and comments and respond to your stuff if you don't want to go through the awkwardness of being a full break. But I also just want to remind you that you don't necessarily owe anything to these people anymore, right? You don't owe them access to you just because they were the mom of somebody that you dated a while ago, right? So it's okay for you to say, actually, I don't want you to see what's on my feed, or actually I'm not interested in looking at these pictures. And so it's just again, we talk about this all the time, but on social media, it just feels like unfriending someone is so mean, right? Like the idea that we could like possibly say like, I don't actually want you seeing my shit feels like this like taboo that, or like this big fuck you to people. When in actuality, it's like, yeah, cool. It's sort of like not inviting people to your house, right? It's like you don't, it's not unreasonable for you to say like, don't come over unannounced, right? Like, I no longer have an open door policy.
Right. And, 50 years ago, if you went through a separation or a breakup, you wouldn't have like your ex-mother-in-law like popping up every couple days with a newspaper clipping of the new couple. You know what I mean? Like this is
right,
not, this is unusual access that we have to people after we decide to no longer be in partnership together. And I think Sam's right. And just want to reiterate that this is not a one size fits all thing. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. And it can happen gradually over time or case by case. Two examples that I'm thinking of are like the last time I went through a breakup, I think I've unfriended his sister immediately because I
think you did.
I didn't want to see her. And I loved her. I mean, she was like one of the best parts about that relationship. She was like so cool and so fun. And we had a great relationship, but I was so crushed by the breakup that I needed to erase it all. Right. And that's one side of it. Right. I think she still follows me on Instagram. I just don't follow her back. And that is okay with me. That's what I needed. The other example I'm thinking of, which might apply to this letter writer, when you have a more intimate relationship with somebody that requires a little bit more nuance and untangling, you could reach out to this mother if you felt like it was appropriate and send a message that was something like, hey, so-and-so, this might seem odd, but I felt compelled to write you and let you know that I'm going to be unfriending you. This is nothing personal. I'm just trying to move on fully from this past relationship, and it's hard seeing the new one. I have a lot of love and respect for you. Thank you for the time with your family. I wish you the best. I'm out. Like that is the effort that I would put into a relationship that was like long lasting, that I felt like needed that sort of communication, right? Even though I loved my ex's sister and that we were close, we weren't at that point. You know what I mean? I think she actually, now that I remember, like, I think she sent me a text and was like, I'm so crushed that my brother broke up with you. And I think I responded like, yeah, me too. But like, I think it's
didn't that person's mom also reach out to you?
Yes. Well, they all loved me. So
that's because you are so lovable.
Thank you.
You were they had to deal with this like stupid son, and you were the only thing that
he was not stupid. I'm at a very healed point right now. Anyway, moving on. We just weren't right for each other. But he had a lovely family who I loved to date. You know what I mean? Like it was like dating his family was one of the best parts. Anyway, I just wanted to give those two examples as like scripts. You know, the one script is don't say anything. This is an abnormal amount of access this person has to your mind and life, right? Your day-to-day life, to wake up and see your ex's new girlfriend. Like that is unusual.
It is.
And the other end is a script of respect and of closeness to say like, I love you. This isn't personal. I'm trying to move on. You know, it is you, you know, so.
For sure.
All right, let's get into this week's letter. It's from Monkey Branch Victim, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the void. Hi, Sam and Sierra. I wanted to write to you about how to deal with the horrible aftermath of your partner having an affair, both emotional and physical. Short backstory, about 2 months ago, I caught my boyfriend of 3 years cheating, and he admitted to it while telling me he no longer loves me and is in love with his affair partner, who he met at work. He is also her manager. Yikes. We broke up that day. I blocked him on absolutely everything, and they are still together, to my knowledge. In general, I do feel like I'm healing very well. I'm able to see that we weren't compatible in many fundamental ways, and we were growing apart, and the breakup was inevitable. I know that being alone is so much better than feeling alone in a relationship. I just wish he could have opened up to me about not being happy instead of acting like everything was fine while lying to me and breaking my trust. My real question is, how do you deal with feeling like although you were the hurt one, the betrayed one, you are now dealing with the fallout of the relationship? My ex gets to keep his job and now gets to move on and be happy with a new person, while I'm left dealing with the financial burden of paying rent by myself and going through this breakup alone, knowing that he got what he wanted, which was to be rid of me. Thinking of them together, happy, in love, makes me feel physically ill. How do I get over the fact that it seems like my loss is not worth mourning to him? That the years and happy times we spent together seemingly got erased and mean nothing to him now that there's a new person in the picture. That it was so easy to replace me. It cuts me to my core to feel like the person I just spent 3 years of my life with can just toss me and our life together out in a matter of minutes. If you can't tell, this is my first big girl heartbreak, and admittedly, it was a doozy. I'm trying to find a therapist to talk to as well, but it's pretty slow moving on that front, so I'm trying to do the head and heart work by myself at the moment. Even if you don't read this on the pod, I still appreciate you both and can't wait for many more episodes of Just Break Up in 2023. All right, my darling, thank you so much for writing, listening, and trusting us with this letter. I'm so sorry that not only did your relationship end, but that it ended in this way that is so particularly scarring. To have not only your trust broken, but your sense of worthiness and value be put into question. I mean, this is just a perfect example that like breakups are a mind fuck on every single level, you know?
And it just illustrates how unfair breakups are in so many different ways, right? Like so often it's the person who does the harm that doesn't have to face any of the repercussions of it, right? And your ex cheated on you and then continues to live his life, which is like an affront to you, understandably. Yeah, right. The audacity of the fact that he would actually like go out there and continue to live and not just like curl up in a ball and disappear from the world, which is, I think, what so many of us would wish our exes would do when they treat us really poorly.
Or just like look like you're having a hard time. You know what I mean? I think going back to like blocking, I think that's a reason why I need to block my exes after breaking up, because I don't want to like see them on their morning walks, or I don't want to see them having the audacity to post a selfie and look that good as though they're enjoying their life and not incredibly grief-filled, grief-stricken
for sure, right?
For losing me. I think you're right, though. The curse of the breakups is that there's this very confident illusion that the dumper, the person who left, gets to move on flawlessly and without any consequences. And I call it a confident illusion because honestly, it looks and feels like that sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is that person just leaving your life and moving on with theirs. And sometimes that's the exact case, but it's a great opportunity for us to remind ourselves that we actually don't know what's going on in a person's mind, despite what they present, despite their actions. We are not in their minds and bodies. We don't know what they're thinking or grappling with or regretting or struggling with. Honestly, like, I don't know your ex. I don't know. I'm not in his mind, but I do bet he wishes he did that differently. I do bet that he wishes his current relationship started in a less questionable way, right? He's going to have to deal with that in his own personal life. And again, this is just 100% an assumption, you know? But I don't know. It might appear as though he's moving on without any consequences or without grieving you. But the uncomfortable and unfortunate truth is we don't know. We don't know what's in his mind. And part of the difficult truth of a breakup is we may never know. We don't get access to that person anymore, and they don't get access to us. And in breakups, we want like in our partnerships, to deal with things together. We want our grief to be seen. We want our pain to be seen. And we want our value to be affirmed by that other person. And that's the opposite of what happens in a breakup, because now you are no longer teammates. You are opponents. That's not true. That's being dramatic.
Kind of.
Yeah. No, it's not. You're just, now you're strangers. It's like that fucking Katy Perry lyrics. Like, you used to see me naked and now I don't remember what the lyric is, but something like,
okay.
Now we barely say hi,
Yeah. And as you're sort of grappling with this, one of the things that might be helpful is to remember who your teammates are, right? Like, the idea that he needs to somehow be able to see and validate this grief isn't real. Because like Sierra said, he's a stranger. He's like a person on the street now who can who has no insight into your life and whose life you have no insight into. So who are the friends that you have? You have me and Sierra to say, like, absolutely, this sucks. Absolutely, this is worth mourning and grieving. And absolutely, he's a jerk for cheating on you. And, and he may be happy out there, but that doesn't mean in any way that your relationship wasn't important, that you're not important, right? We just don't have a glimpse into the life that he's living in this moment, or sort of what's going on with him. So all of this to say, like, it's okay for you to be feeling more about this relationship than he is. It doesn't mean the fact that he is not having a reaction that you can see doesn't mean that your relationship was unimportant. Doesn't mean that you are not somebody worth grieving or worth mourning, right? And it's okay for you to be having a different experience than he is, because you were in different relationships, right? We talk about this all the time. You were in the same relationship, but you were both experiencing it really, really differently. And the fact that he experienced it differently, the fact that he wanted to get out of it, the fact that he found a way out of it in a way that was very painful for you, doesn't mean that your experience of this relationship wasn't true. Doesn't mean that it wasn't something that was obviously very valuable to you. And you have our permission to grieve this relationship in whatever way feels right for you, in whichever way feels the most healing. And he's doing it in his own way, right? He's doing his healing through whatever it is that he's doing. But his healing isn't a necessity for you to heal, right? And they're not going to look the same, and that sucks, absolutely. Right. But it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, right? It doesn't mean that somehow you've got the short end of the stick. You absolutely have a whole bunch of stuff that you need to wade through and figure out. But that happens in breakups all the time, right? When we move out, when we lose our jobs, when we no longer have that person that we can confide in, we have to find a way to continue to move on, to find ways to get those needs met, because that person's not there for us anymore. Right.
And I think right now, the biggest lie that I am trying to entangle in my own life is that my worth and value is inherently tied to other people telling me I'm worthy and valuable. I mean, we are taught that from the very beginning of being, We are taught that love is conditional, it's relational, that value is based on our performance, and when we apply that to a relationship, when we apply that to love, and all of a sudden that love ends, that relationship ends, it makes us feel like we are a failure, that we are less valuable, that we are unlovable, and it also sets us up for like another level of mind fuck, because we want to look to the person who left us to say, can you affirm my personhood? Can you affirm my value? Yep. Even though you don't want to be in partnership with me. I mean, I say all of this because it's so relatable. It's so painful, but it's a great opportunity to again say, this person was not for me, and this person does not get to determine my value or worth in the world. Just because this person no longer loves me doesn't mean I am unlovable or hard to love, Yep. And it's another big painful opportunity for growth to remind ourselves that we look for fairness and justice in a world that is not fair or just. Like the world, it's not just the world of dating, folks, that's chaotic and cruel. It is the whole world. And I don't even mean that in a pessimistic way. You know, it just, something that was so instrumental in me getting over my own heartbreak was acknowledging that my life was never supposed to be without heartbreak to begin with.
For sure. For sure.
My life is guaranteed to have heartbreak because I'm a human, because I'm putting myself out there, because I'm being vulnerable, and because not all people are for me, and I am not for all people. And that is a direct equation for heartbreak, right? It's a guarantee. For sure. And this breakup might, in your grieving process, as you move through time, as you heal, as you grow, as you move on, this heartbreak might feel less, bright. It might feel less sharp, but it may never feel just. It may never feel like, oh, okay, that I'm cool with that. It makes sense. Yep. But you internally will say, I'm okay with me not being okay with this breakup. I'm okay with this breakup never making sense, because I'm not going to look for sense or justice or closure in a place that won't give me any.
It sort of speaks to the idea that we so often assume that our discomfort is like telling us that something is deeply wrong.
Totally.
Right? Like the idea of like you thinking about your ex and the person that he cheated on you with happy in love together, making you physically ill. And I know that that's sort of like ringing alarm bells in your head, right? Like something has to change. Something is wrong here. But I also just want to say it absolutely makes sense to me that is the experience that you're having when you're thinking about your ex and the person they left with you or left you for happy in love, right?
Yep.
The fact that you're feeling that physical illness doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong. It just is telling you that you're experiencing grief over this relationship, right? You are experiencing what it feels like to mourn somebody, and you're experiencing that feeling of watching somebody who you loved be happy with somebody else, right?
Yeah.
That is such a normal thing. That is such an understandable thing for your body to be telling you in this moment. And the thing that we need to do in those moments, which can sometimes feel really counterintuitive to us, is to not say, get rid of the feeling, right? Get rid of that sickness, get rid of that pain that we're experiencing, and instead say, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. What do I need to do to tend to the child in me, the person in me, the person that I love that in this moment is just feeling so much pain?
Yes.
So what are the ways that you can say, oh, absolutely, I totally hear how difficult this is for me in this moment. And all I want to do is wrap myself in a hug. All I want to do is treat myself really well in this moment. This isn't something that I need to get over immediately. This is something that I need to spend time nurturing and healing, rather than saying, oh, something is deeply wrong and that something needs to stop. Which I totally get. Like that is how I respond to most feelings in the moment. It's like, I'm having a big feeling, something must be terribly wrong. But it doesn't actually mean that's what's happening. It just means that, of course, you are feeling deeply sad about this. Of course, you are feeling jealous or angry or nauseous at the fact that this person has moved on and left you in this lurch. It's unfair. It sucks. It's not fun to be going through. So what are you doing to care for yourself in this moment? And how are you asking the network around you, the people who love you and support you, for what you need in order to be held in this moment, rather than being sort of plucked out of this moment so you don't have to feel any of this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. We know this is hard. We love you. We hope that this gives you a little bit more perspective, or at least some community as you go through this difficult healing process. We love you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for writing.
All right, folks. So if you are a new listener, this is just going to seem like a totally normal episode to you. But if you are one of our OG Just Break Up community members, this episode feels a little bit different, and we're going to tell you about it.
Great. Yeah. So we have made the decision to break up our episodes into 3 separate episodes every week. So instead of getting 1 episode with 3 letters on Mondays, you will get 3 episodes with 1 letter on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you're getting all of the same amount of content, which is great because we want to make sure that we are putting out into the world all of the love that we've been putting out in the last 4.5 years. But we are making this decision strategically. We haven't changed our format since we started the podcast. That's not true. We changed it once when we went from 4 letters to 3 letters. But we are thinking about ways that we can make this content more interesting to folks. We're interested in doing things like playlists or submitting particular episodes about particular topics to folks. And it's hard to do that when there's 3 different letters about 3 different things in one episode. And what we've heard from you all is that it is also hard to recommend particular letters or to find particular topics that you're interested in because of the format of the show. So what we're trying to do is just make it easier for folks to find what they need from the episodes that we're putting out.
Exactly.
So to repeat, it's all the same amount of content. It's just broken up over 3 different episodes. So if you like listening to 3 letters at a time, guess what? All you have to do is press play twice and you will get the same amount of content. But we appreciate you all going along with us. We really think that it's going to be beneficial for us as podcast hosts and creators and also for you all as listeners. So we're super excited about this change and we will keep going with it.
Yeah. As always, thank you so much for listening, for supporting us, for trusting our intuition as creators. We feel really great about it. So thank you in advance for your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for pressing play. We love you all so much.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. As a reminder, you can support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month and get an additional bonus weekly episode. If you can find us on patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need 2 random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Thank you for listening. And remember, your worth and lovability is not determined by someone who couldn't love you. Your worth, value, lovability is inherent to who you are. And if all else fails,
just break up.